Yo, what is going on, RoK Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today I wanted to touch on something that I thought was really impacting that I've been seeing happen quite a bit lately, and it has to deal with the new player experience and how the community for a game and any parts of said community that focus on the new player experience slash introduction can heavily factor into the game's player retention and therefore kind of sustaining peak activity levels. And I'm going to dive in a little bit to what I mean. And then in a future video, I'm going to actually show and do a deep dive on a couple of these as well. Before we get started, as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you sub, like, ring the notification bell, and if you want to join and be a part of our conversation, hit up the Discord. You can find a link to that in the pinned comment description down below. Okay, so first things first. Where I'm going with this is that if you're a new player, even if you're a vet, and you are considering, migrating somewhere, maybe restarting and jumping, you're a new player that's coming in, you don't really know anything, so you're getting populated into the first kingdom. Maybe you see some ads or some posts in world chat about jumping, or about, hey, maybe you guys can restart, or maybe you want to, join my alliance or migrate, right? You have all these things that are happening and kind of marketing that's, whether it's on Discord, right, if you join that, if you find that right away, or you check that, or you do it later, right, compared to what you're seeing in-game. And what I'm noticing is that there is just an unfortunate amount of misinformation. And this is, don't get me wrong, this is common, because when you have a lot of content creators, when you have a lot of just players, right, that will post things that they believe are true, and they just turn out not to be, right? I'm a big believer, and we're not saying that everyone does it, but specifically talking about when it does happen. I find it imperative that we make those corrections as soon as possible, and we're not beholden to our pride as individuals to where we can do nothing wrong, and that, it's not okay to not be right all the time. And, I'll give an example. I've put out pieces of content before, which as a whole were not wrong, but it had pieces that were in there that were just they were not 100% accurate or accurate to my standards on if I'm putting something out, and I've taken it down, remade it, reposted it. There's been times where if I said something that, which thankfully is not all the time, and is rarely at all, because I like to make sure that I am educating myself, right, asking the right questions, going out there and researching information, and then cross-referencing it. So I'm not just hearing it from one source, unless I know that source is valid and they have a consistent track record of giving good and accurate information, right? You can use that as your baseline, even if you're still going out there to corroborate the information. This is almost kind of how investigative journalists operate, right? You want to try and have as many sources, as many people saying the same thing, so you have this consistency, right, of what you're hearing before you arguably or potentially speak on something. And I like to try and apply the same logic to what we do in the content creator space, what we do if you're someone who just has a lot of knowledge in the game and you want to share that, you want to help players out by answering questions or giving them direction, letting them know where they can go. That's great. And this is something, and I just want to reference two things here, right, for kind of why I really felt the need to make this video, is that one, I've had a few people, actually, I want to say this, I've had a few people come to me and have told me that, boss, I went to go watch some videos on jumping, right? Some recent videos, some that were from a little while ago. I had two situations that happened to me just in the past 24 hours. And I thought to myself, man, this would be a great way to just to speak on some of this, which is, they told me, they said, hey, I saw some posts that were made on some Discords, and then some people had reached out and had just asked me, hey, I was watching your video, or hey, I got information from these other videos, and they were wondering why certain things were not adding up or were not accurate, and that others said, I really appreciated watching your video on jumping. Even though it's an hour long, you really explained everything in detail to arguably the best way, right? The best amount that it could be explained in that amount of time, because there's a lot that goes into it. And I was super appreciative. People really got a lot out of that, even though it's a longer video. I stand by that product, and I put that up against anyone else who's ever made who has a current jumper video on process out now or out recently that at least factors in the new changes that have happened, small and large. And then I had another situation where someone reached out to me about, it was a few people, but one in particular had reached out about, looking for some help on putting together a jumper ad. And, I was kind of going through the process with them of, hey, them saying, hey, here's my ad, what do you think about it? And I kind of started asking questions about, what's their experience, how long have they been playing, have they led an alliance before, was this their first time doing a jumper project, what were their goals of their first project compared to what the goals are now, how many alliances and confirmed players did they have the first time compared to what they're looking for now, and really just trying to get a good understanding of what their views are, right? What are their expectations for what they want to do with the project based on the amount of people and support that they currently have. And this was important. So in this one example, the person I was talking to had kind of asked me, why are you asking me all these questions, right? What's your experience? And or he said, I think they said something to the effect of, do you have a lot of experience? So one of the things I initially said, in order just to kind of provide some cachet, if you will, is my resume in RoK and in Kingdom Builders, right? So that was like that was basically the first thing I sent before I then started going in. And I did that because I wanted there to be some type of visual aid that says, hey, the person you're speaking to has quite a bit of knowledge and experience in Kingdom Builders and in the specific process that you're referring to and wanting to get some assistance on. And that obviously helped, but what I realized from it is there was such a disconnect in what the approach was for the expectation versus the reality. And the reality for this specific case was that this individual just at the time, at the moment, just did not have a lot of knowledge and experience when it came to specifically jumping and what they were looking to do in the kingdom, right? It almost kind of came across to me as though it was more of, oh, hey, I've led an alliance before, this jumping thing may not be that hard. I'll just go ahead and lead a project and, maybe not immediately recognizing that there's differences. When you are running one alliance as a lead compared to putting a project together, you are managing multiple alliances, meaning multiple leaders that are arguably at your same title or position, right? Except you have to, depending on how you view it, but most of the time you really have to try and act more as though the next title or the next step up, right, the next position up, which is more of, you may also want to be a leader in the project, but you are, in short, the founder of the project, meaning you are managing, right? You are a project manager at that point. And so it becomes so much more than just being a leader. And again, we're going to do another deep dive into this at a later time, but I just thought this was really important to touch on and talk about because these things, I just started having a bunch of these questions being asked to me in the past, 48 hours now, and really kind of more recently happening in the past 24 with just a few more of the more highlighted type things, more potent scenarios that occurred. And I really wanted just to touch on this and talk about it because I just think it's really important that it's always good to educate yourself, right? Take time to really do that so you can have a good understanding and realistic expectations before you go into something, right? And even before, like I said, before you speak on something, before you dive into something, before you put something out there, really make sure that what you're saying is accurate, because you don't want to spread misinformation and have that be a big crutch on a new player's experience, or maybe even a returning slash restarting player's experience. And that to me is just one of the most unfortunate things. And I hope that people at least take something away from this video where you look at a situation where you're going in and you're going to speak to something, or if you've seen someone do that, right? It's okay to let those people know. Look, even though this isn't accurate, right? One of the things that you can always do is go out and educate yourself right before you speak on something. And when you do it in that way, especially if you put it delicately, right? Probably a little TLC sprinkle on it, right? It's never going to come across aggressive. It's just going to come across as informative, right? And obviously, what I should say is it could, depending on the person, but at least you are not, giving them, at least saying it in an aggressive way with ill intent. And I think that's a very good approach when you're kind of going about doing things in that way. Okay, that is pretty much going to be it for me at this point. And again, even though this was more of, I guess you could argue, a rant, a soliloquy, I just really wanted to touch on this. It was something that was really just irking the back of my brain to put this out. And for those of you that are still here, if you enjoyed this speech, thanks for staying. And of course, I'd love to hear any thoughts right down below. And let me put the question, have you came across a situation where you've seen someone post something, or you've seen someone do something where it came across to you either before, in the moment, or after it happened, that this person may not have as much knowledge and experience as they appear or they present themselves as? And then what happened, right? What did you do? How did you think about the situation afterwards, right? Did you think, man, this is rough, this person really should have prepared themselves more before kind of coming into this? Did you just leave? Did you just, have not want anything more to do with them? Did you start looking at them differently, right? I think it would be interesting to really hear, especially I'm talking about for those people that they post something as fact. They say something as fact. They are so diehard believers of it, and when in reality, they just didn't do their due diligence, right, before they decided to speak, action, mention something. So I'd be curious. Let me know down in the comments below. That's it for me. As always, until next time, I'll catch you later.